is on the agenda for today. So we're going to have a teaching moment. I'm going to be talking about building a winning culture, which is something that I feel like is pretty neglected in a lot of different industries. And there's little simple things you can do to really make sure that you have a culture that people want to thrive in. And then Harley's going to take it over from there. He's going to be talking about applicable skill. This is where it's going to get real tangible, how to onboard employees. If I could just get a show of hands here, if we aren't being too shy, anybody here having hard times hiring lately or just finding good people, good help? Yeah, I see a few hands coming up. And I know that I have quite a few of my clients that have had, that hurdle to face lately. So we want to make sure that onboarding employees is easy, and that once you have those employees, you're able to retain them. And so we're going to be talking about that here today. Then we're going to have an applicable skill. What action can you take now to help solve this problem and move forward with it? And then we're going to have a Q&A session. We have a Q&A session at every single group coaching. It's going to be about the last 15, 20 minutes at the back end of the call. And so if you have any questions throughout the call, feel free to type them in the chat. Feel free to unmute. This is a dialogue. I'm not a preacher on a stand. And so comments are more than welcome, but just also know we are going to have a Q&A at the end of the session. And for any questions that you might have. We also have a Get Help Now call every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central Time, where one of us is just on Zoom waiting for clients to jump on that call to ask specific questions. So you've got access to laser coaching, you've got access to group coaching, but also know that that call is available if you ever have something, kind of pressing or burning. You're always welcome to jump on it. All right, so favorite part of group coaching here, wins of the week. Does anybody have a win that they would like to share? We've got a pretty big group here today. I see Chris over there. Joe, I see you in your car still listening, making stuff happen. Kathy, you're here as well, got here early. Do we have any wins? If you could just unmute and tell us the good news.
Hey, this is Chris. I'll share with y'all. Back here behind me is some of my good news. I just hired a new employee to come on board. He's joining us. Today is his second day. His name is Aaron. So Aaron's going to get to experience some of the coaching, but we're very excited about having him join our company. And also the topic of discussion about building a culture and how to onboard employees. We'll use him as our guinea pig.
Yes.
Let's go, Aaron.
That's awesome, Chris. Talk about finding employees. That is great. Congratulations. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Any other wins? Small, big, or large? We celebrate them all.
As someone else is thinking about their win, or if this is it, that's fine too. But the Pink Dumpster had their best month ever last month. When they started with us, they're doing about 120 dumpster rentals a month. In April, they were able to get 264 dumpsters, and it's only going up from here. So,
woo,
man,
that's awesome. That's a lot of pink dumpsters out there in the world.
I love it. I love the branding.
Kathy, I saw you unmuted. Do you have a win there?
I wanted to share that with Jonathan's great coaching and expertise, we opened up our Google business reviews, and we have 45-star reviews as of now. So that's exciting.
They started from zero.
We started with 0.
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. People must like you guys.
I hope so.
I'll tell you what, when those first, they did a good job gathering reviews for sure, but when that first email batch went out, people couldn't wait to say good things about them.
I love it. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Kathy. And again, thank you guys all for being here and for sharing. This is one of my clients. This is Dale Eads. He's with Arnold's Plumbing. He's been with us for a little bit over 2 years now. When he first started with us, it was just him working out of his home, just him in his truck. Now he has 3 vans out in the field full time. We're looking to hire that 4th person and get that 4th van out in the field. Instead of working from home, this past year, he bought a warehouse and renovated it. And now they're working out of the warehouse. So he no longer has his crew muddying up his living room and all that stuff, which I know is a relief for him. Why I have his photo here is because Dale Eads does one of the very best jobs I've seen of building a winning culture with his guys. He is so protective over his crew and so intentional about the culture that he builds. A few examples of what this looks like. A couple times a month, he pulls out the grill to the outside of the warehouse and he cooks lunch for everybody. He will make sure that they don't have any calls around 1 or noon, and everybody will come back to the shop. They'll eat together, have a couple hours of a break, and then he sends them back out into the field. Just a small thing, that really makes a big difference. It shows how he put it is he goes, they're serving me and my company all day long. Me cooking for them is my opportunity to serve them, which I think is just beautiful. It's beautiful. This didn't come when he first hired his first employee, but they're now in a position where he's starting to offer 401ks and insurance. That's not always super common for a contractor. And in the beginning, you might not be able to offer that, but that's something that he was intentional about, that he wanted to be able to give his guys. They wanted to be able to provide for them and their family. And then my favorite thing that he has done, and I'm really pushing for Redmond Growth to do this for us, is last year he rented a cabin and he took his guys and all of their family, the wives, the kids, and they all went and floated the Illinois River, stayed in the cabin for the weekend, ate together, cooked together, and just had a great time. And it's these little things that's really allowed him. He has a crew that will go above and beyond for him, that will work extra hours for him, that are so protective. If a new guy comes on who's doing something he shouldn't, they are immediately going to Dale. They're immediately telling him. They are so protective over the culture. This guy has almost 500 reviews. 2.5 years ago when he first started us, he had less than 10. But because of this culture and this team that he has built, it bleeds into everything else, all the other aspects of his business, from the customers to the quality of work that is performed, all because he is so intentional about the culture that he is building. And so wanted to brag about Dale a little bit here. I think he is on this call, but I'm sure he is in the office. So I bet he's just listening. But this is just a prime example that just doing a little bit does go a really long way when it comes to your guys and to the culture that you're building. So kind of to go into it, building a winning culture. Does anybody know who Richard Branson is? This guy with very luscious hair. I've got a little hair envy going on right now. If you'll just unmute if you know who is Richard Branson. Anybody here have an idea? I'm sure you guys have seen this guy.
Yep.
Okay, who is he, Daryl?
Virgin everything.
Yes. So he is a multi-billionaire. He owns Virgin Groups. He is a serial entrepreneur, very successful individual. And he is very well known for the culture that he builds in his companies and with his team. This is one of his quotes here: create the kind of workplace and company culture that will attract great talent. If you hire brilliant people, they will make work feel more like play. I would love if anybody be willing to speak up here. I know that I've at some point, not at Redmond Growth, worked for a company or with a coworker who tended to make working pretty miserable, whether they had a bad attitude or the boss was just real cool. Okay. Darren, do you want to share about your experience?
Sure. I came back from an event and was just thinking, I don't enjoy going to my office. I don't enjoy the people I have hired. I don't enjoy being around. I don't enjoy it. And I came back and I ended up over a short period of time getting rid of all the people that I didn't enjoy being with. And one gentleman actually I didn't get to speak with, and he came in, and we're in a seasonal business, and he said, when are we starting up? And I said, Jim, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to let you go. And he previously had said, man, I said, how you doing, Jim? How's the winter? Winter sucks. It's snowing all over the place, blah, 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 blah. And then I go, I'm gonna have to let you go. And he's like, why? And I said, Jim, realistically, you do a great job, but you know how you describe the winter? That's why I have to let you go. I can't deal with that type of attitude all the time.
Sucking the energy, sucking the life out of the place. Absolutely. We've all experienced this. We've all had these horrible experiences working with somebody who just sucks the life out of the office, makes going to work miserable. And part of you being the business owner is getting rid of those employees. If you've had the hard talk with them, they are poison to the rest of your company. You are doing the rest of your guys in the company a favor by removing those types of cancerous employees that are just really damaging the culture and the emotional state of the office. We all know that hiring's hard right now. We had a show of hands earlier. Everybody's trying to hire. We know it's hard to find good work. And so when you've worked hard to get them hired, now how do we keep them? Better yet, if we are so intentional about the culture that we build, how can we attract more people like them? Yes, this is a worthwhile activity. How many of you are sometimes still getting sucked out into the field, having to deal with customers, do the day-to-day? Vast majority of us. And I have a feeling that those of you that are hiding, not turning on your cameras, that you guys are raising your hands as well. It happens. You get sucked out in the field. And so when I tell you that we have to build a company culture, you might be thinking that is the last thing on my mind. I'm thinking about the customer who calls, thinking about the pissed off employee, thinking about the materials need to be ordered, organizing my P&L. That's low on the list for me. But just like with my example with Arnold's Plumbing, his small little intentionality with his team has bled out into every other aspect of the company. They're willing to work longer hours. They have a better impression. They're more professional. They're more happy when they're in front of customers. He's got over 400 five-star reviews, approaching 500. I mean, it bleeds out into every other aspect. And so even if you set it where twice, once a month, you bring in donuts to the guys. A couple times a year, you take them all out to dinner, or you do a little family cookout or something to where you're really intentional about building the culture. It's so worthwhile doing. This is another Richard Branson quote. He goes, there's no magic formula for great company culture. The key is just to treat your staff how you would like to be treated. That's it. That's the key, is to just think, if I was an employee, or when I was an employee, how would I have liked to be treated? A lot of you are probably pretty hard workers. And so who here would have gotten pretty excited about the idea of merit-based pay, getting bonuses based off of the work that you're doing? Anybody here, that sound pretty attractive to them? Yeah, absolutely. That's how your mind works, is I'm working my tail off. I should be getting rewarded for it. Treat your employees the way that you would have wanted to be treated when you were an employee. And that's going to go a really long ways. What this looks like: sharing the vision Be intentional about aligning how your company can help them reach their personal goals. Have a conversation with them about their personal goals. What would they like to do? Maybe they want to buy a house. Maybe they want to hit a certain number in their bank account. Maybe they want to sell and buy, sell the vehicle they've been driving for 10 years and buy a new one. What are their goals? Be aware of them and make sure that we're being intentional about sharing with them how what you are doing is going to allow them to be able to get to that goal.
Yeah, I'll say that that's something that Tim, Redmond Growth plug here, but that's something that Tim Redmond does a phenomenal job of doing with us, is he figures out what our personal goals are. And he says, hey, this is what I'm planning to do in the company. This is how I want to have you achieve your personal goals through what we're doing here. The more that he ties the growth of Redmond Growth to the growth of my own personal goals, the more I continue to see my future and how it aligns with what Redmond Growth is doing. And it's so powerful. And that's how he has guys like Nicole and Harley and Jonathan stick around for years and years, because that's how you keep all-stars. You align their goals with the vision of your goals for the company, and you see the two together in the future.
That's how we get to keep someone like you, Bryce.
You keep calling us all-stars.
That's exactly it. Turnover rate will be a lot lower if they feel and they know that there's a pathway for them to grow at your company and be able to reach their personal goals. Communicate with kindness. I was raised by a single dad who's been a coach for over 20 years. Sugarcoating is not in my nature. I have had to learn the hard way to communicate with kindness. It goes a really long ways, and it can be really frustrating when you are a business owner and for so long in your career, you see something, you do it, and it takes a lot less time and it's a lot faster for you to just do it. And you don't understand why an employee can't just do the same thing. They're wired a little different. So communicate with kindness. Hug, kick, hug. That's a method. If you're ever having to communicate something hard with an employee, think hug, kick, hug. So hey man, we really appreciate you being part of this team. The customers love you. You do a phenomenal job. Now, one thing that I've just been noticing, and it's not a huge deal, but sometimes we just want to nip in the butt a little bit, is lately you've been showing up about 5-10 minutes late. I know that might not seem like a big deal, but it just really throws us off schedule quite a bit. And your customers do love you. You're doing a great job. The work that you're performing is awesome. I would just really like to see you. Do you think that you could do that for me? Do you think that'd be fair to just make sure we're showing up on time? Hug, kick, hug. We want to deliver news in that sandwich of hugs. And that will go a long ways when it comes to the culture. If they are constantly feeling like they can't do anything right and they're always being criticized, that is not going to be a culture that they're going to want or believe that they can win in. The third thing, these are kind of the examples I talked about with Arnold's Plumbing. Team building, there's a wide range of ways to do this. A packet of hot dogs and buns does not cost very much. Grill out for you guys. You don't need to take them to a steakhouse. At some point, you might be able to afford that. That might not be realistic right now. Shoot, I know that ice cream parties are fun for 5-year-olds. I think they're fun for most adults too. Treat the guys, do something, do some type of team building, throw a little cookout for the families. Just invest that little bit of time that's really going to allow your guys to bond, and it's going to allow them to see, hey, this is somebody who really does, care about me, who wants to connect with me, and really, really believes I'm a big part of this team. So those are just the 3 little things that you can do to really start influencing your company culture. It goes a really long ways. Any questions about any of that I just covered? Questions, comments, grievances before I let Harley take over?
I have one comment here. Someone I'm thinking of in particular is Jeff of Doig's Restoration and Cleaning, and he actually just implemented a great team building activity just this last month, where for each review an employee gets, they're actually they earn a bag for cornhole on their monthly cornhole event. And I'm sure they're doing other things in cornhole, but and for each bag they get, they land a certain bonus for the points they get when they play. And that's just something that they're looking forward to. So number one, they got to get Google reviews, super important. And number two, they're making it a fun monthly activity that everyone's looking forward to as well. And it's just part of the company activity.
That's awesome. No, love little fun ideas like that. A little bit of competitiveness in the workplace is not a bad thing, you know, to have those types of events. And Harley, I'm gonna let you take over here. I'm sharing this screen. While he does that, we did share in the chat to everyone here a article. It's by Forbes. It's about Richard Branson and the top 5 things that he does to really keep employees and build culture. If you get a chance to read that, it's much shorter than the about 400-page book over it. And so I would recommend skimming through that article if you get a chance.
Nice. No, we all love footnotes and summary articles. Super nice. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. Yes. So we just talked about building a winning workplace culture, but how does that start? That starts with bringing great people on the right way for your company. Because as you guys know, almost everything is about first impressions. Pretty much everything's about first impressions. And so if you get someone in a company where, it's rushed, they're thrown into something and it looks disorganized, then there's going to be some skepticism about the longevity of work in there. Because, there was a time back in the day, where people, bosses back in the day used to just say, "You're hired. Now get to work." Yeah. Not anymore. And that doesn't work anymore, guys, because there's so many people that are working here today where they need the structure. They need to know what is going on. They want to see that future and that picture of where they want to go with the company. Because again, there's so many people having a hard time finding people. So, in supply and demand, there's a lot of supply of jobs. And so that means the demand of the employees, they got a lot of options to choose from. And so why should we even bother with an onboarding process? Well, first of all, it shows your new hire that you've got your act together. You've got everything straight. You've got all the systems in place. There's a plan for what this person's supposed to do, coming in strong for the workday. And they know when they're signing up that, there's a good plan for them. Second, they reduces wasted labor dollars by preventing anything from being missed. Yes. So instead of every day telling them new things about what they're supposed to know or learn working for the company, you get to educate them right at the beginning about everything important they're supposed to know, so that there's not hiccups as they get started for the first couple weeks or even the first couple months of essential processes and core values and things that need to be known on the job. And then furthermore, it improves productivity because look, what's most important for a new hire is that they get trained, they get onboarded, and they get up and running to produce more revenue for the company. Because the longer it takes for someone to get hired and be an optimal person for the company, the more costly they are. If someone needs to be trained and fully useful for the company in 6 months, it's a lot of wasted, expense whenever they could be doing a great job of what they're supposed to do within a month of what they're supposed to do, or even shorter. So first step with creating this onboarding process is we got to write out everything that's in our head about what an employee needs to know. working at the company. And luckily for you, we have quite a few examples of what we put together for people. For instance, this is with Doyle Plumbing here, and he's got a pretty brief onboarding checklist here, where these are things within, I would guess, the first week that a new plumber needs to be trained on in order to work at the company. How to send invoices, what to do with timesheets. Hey, what's the etiquette for being in a customer's house? You think some of these things would probably be pretty self-explanatory, but I mean, you guys are all business owners. You have your own stories of people being hired on, and basic knowledge is not basic. And so it needs to be explained in the beginning, so you don't have oops moments with these employees. And then with policies, having a handbook, a dress code, these are all nice things to have that you'll work on with your coach and fully forming. But this is an example. Another one is with Rogers Plumbing. This is another setup here where there's even homework for the person to do in the first week, as you see in the homework section here. But then you've also got everything else. And I thought this was interesting because he makes sure to point out specific words and phrases that they shouldn't use in the company. For instance, ball cock. Apparently, that's a term in plumbing. And instead of saying that word, he decides it's probably better to say water level control assembly. I don't know why he would think that, but and then another one, pipe extender too. Probably a good thing not to say nipple flippantly in conversations. And so you even get into those weeds. And then, our company, practice what we preach. We got our own onboarding checklist for bringing people on. And something I wanted to highlight here too is, like Rogers Plumbing, he's got homework to assign, and we've got some of our own homework to assign that has to do with our culture, where in the past years, our company has read key books that all of our employees need to be educated on in order to be as great a team as possible with each other. And so, I mean, there's no bounds to what you should or shouldn't put on an onboarding checklist. And so you create that, and we'll get into doing that before the end of this session as well. But the second step is pretty simple. Schedule 2 hours on a new hire's first day for onboarding. And the reason why this is really important is because when you hire someone on, you're excited. But let's say Monday comes along and it's their first day. Something happens. A customer is getting rushed. You're trying to get guys out the door. There's a burning fire with scheduling, and things get distracted. And oh yeah, we got a new guy. Oh dang it, that new guy's here. Hey Dave, we're just gonna throw this new guy in with you because we gotta go. We gotta get some stuff done. And then they're out of there. And then their first day experience is a rush sensation where there isn't a formal education about what's supposed to happen for them being on the job. So you deliberately schedule 2 hours, and sometimes you might need more than that, but 2 hours just to make sure this guy or gal knows exactly some of their first steps and necessities on the job. Step 3, not only do we do a couple hours there, but every healthy company that we've worked with or helped to be healthier, or you'll find out there, blocks out time for ongoing training. And I know we've talked about in previous group calls the importance of team meetings, how to do those team meetings. But I know that some of you business owners have gotten quite annoyed at the fact that, you bring up something to an employee and they just continually cannot figure it out. And for whatever reason, they can't, and it's just really frustrating for you, and you don't want to deal with that. Well, Tim Redmond, what he encourages with is a brief quote where he says, people need 1,000 nudges. And he says this to us several times in our own company here. And I know, at least I have been a living testimony to this, that I need 1,000 nudges to finally figure something out. But a good example of this is, you know, a lot of you guys are probably parents, or you at least remember being kids back in the day. You remember how many times your parents told you to do things? Like any simple thing for an adult, but they would have to tell you it incessantly because you're selfish. You're a kid. You want to be rebellious. You don't want to clean that room. You want to wait until you have no underwear to do laundry, and just, you know, it's incessant how many times they had to talk to us. But then do you also realize how many adults still act like children? I had a great conversation with a guy just about this morning, where it's a remodeler, bathroom remodel tile guy. And he's got his first employee that's been with him for 4 or 5 months. And the guy has gotten past what I call the honeymoon phase, where it's been at least a couple months and they're really focused on being impressive on the job. But then the honeymoon is over, and they end up slipping back into their dysfunctions. Or maybe they get a little worried about pay. And in this guy's situation, he decided to take a job on the weekends driving limos at nights. So now suddenly he's coming to work late and being tired on the job. And so this business owner is getting frustrated with me about him because he doesn't want to let him go. And so I talked to him about, like, well, man, you know, it's unfortunate, but another key quote that we should remember that's so true nowadays is that management is now mentorship. Because there's a lot of people that are coming into our companies where, you know, there used to be common values and there used to be common characteristics about what to do professionally and work or with our lives. But nowadays, people just don't have that as much anymore. And because of that, we honestly have to think about, like, well, hey, when we were kids, we didn't know anything about what to do with life because life is totally new. Well, employees are kind of like kids in your company because they're new and they don't know anything that's going on. Like, this is a new company and a new world to them. And so I would encourage you guys to give yourself some patience to know that people do need 1,000 nudges to be able to figure things out. And if you're willing to be patient with them, and you're willing to have good hug moments, and you're willing to have honest conversations with them that are candid, the good people will eventually get past their problems and become very loyal for you. And so anyways, that's my monologue there. But essentially, you can't expect anyone to get 100% of whatever it is after just one simple chat. And that's even with showing them a checklist and even with doing a documented system. And so this culture for business owners of figure it out, or a trial by fire culture for training, it's the norm for a lot of places, but it's not the best. And you guys might have your own stories about how you used to do it that way, and now you've gotten better at doing that. You know, I wonder, I'll take a moment. Are there any business owners here where you had some stories of throwing in an employee into a job and it ended up just not going well for you?
I see a few head nods. I see Andy smiling. I see Kathy nodding her head. I think everybody here might have 1 or 2 stories about when an employee maybe missed the mark.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of times if we really look at ourselves honestly, we might think, man, did we set them up for success? And I'll let you guys marinate on that. But the best companies have regular ongoing training for their skills. This is why we have harped so much about weekly meetings. And so finally, step 4 you have the team actually help assess the new candidate for you. And this goes back to a quote that we used last week, where none of us is as smart as all of us. And, you know, if you've got people in your company that have been there for at least a little bit, you trust them to do a good job. So you bring in a new candidate, and then you interview them, and the candidate's going to put the best face in front of you as the boss, because you're the one that's going to give them money. But the employees that work for you, it's very smart for you to go to them and say, hey, what did you think of them? Just honest thoughts here, you know? And then they could tell you some things that like you totally missed because you were doing something else and they were working with the employee on something. Or they said some comment just real quick off the side, and now that makes some hesitation. And so you built a team around you that you're supposed to trust. Well, why don't we trust them? Because, you know, the culture is not just a you thing, it's everyone having a good culture together. And so these are some of these steps that hopefully you've been taking notes on doing an onboarding process. And so if we want to do it now and work on it, I'd encourage this. First of all, let's start building your onboarding checklist. And what I'm going to show you is a brief starter checklist where if you guys haven't made something like this, I would encourage you to reach out to your coach about this. It's a real helpful document, but essentially, and they've all been shared this document, so they can easily share copies to you. But these are just some of the common guidelines of things that you saw in these example checklists that you can fill out on your own copy of the Google document and fill in your own details. And so this would cover, like, you know, what do they need access to on the first day? What are their logins? Do they have access to a calendar? Is their account set up for the CRM? Do we need to give them a company email? You know, this is honestly like helpful not only for the employee, but also for you if you bring in somebody on. What training needs to happen? And these are just some of the common things for service businesses, but you know, each of you have your own businesses and you have your own unique things that people should be good at real quickly in the company. You know, expectations. I've been working on this document a lot with people, but literally setting up a written pathway to success where if they're starting as a helper, what steps do they need to take in their production in order to become a lead technician? What do those pay increases look like? What do those steps look like? So that everything's out on the table and transparent about how they can reach their revenue goals. Because I don't know about you, but I've been in other companies before where they hire you on, they give you an hourly rate, and then you just start. And there's no like vision of, hey, you work here and commit to doing these things, you'll get promoted to this. And then there's like no future vision of like where I could go as an employee. It's just, hey, get in here, get started, we need you. Which is not a great tactic for keeping people on. And then furthermore, culture and values. This is something really important to establish at the beginning, because, you know, if you want someone to be a coachable person that can take criticism and not try and fight you about it, but just implement it, and maybe they have questions, but they're at least coachable to the feedback, it's going to be much better for you to do that right off the bat than in the middle of having an employee for a few months where they've gotten used to not being coachable, which I know I've at least had one conversation this week about employees being in that spot right now. So we can save ourselves a lot of pain by doing this in the beginning. And so there's all sorts of these steps that you can take where you're able to fill out your onboarding checklist. And so if this is something that interests you, I encourage you to blow up your coach with a text or an email, and they can fire you off a copy of this real quick because this is what we need to do to get started with it. And actually, before I move on with this, is there anybody here in the room that has any questions about what should be included or what's described on this onboarding checklist? Going once, going twice. All right, cool. So I will let you wrestle with it with your coach so that you're able to get the details on there with them. But first step, start building that checklist. Next, you've got some people with employees. And we just heard the great talk from Nicole about a workplace culture. And maybe there's been some bad habits that have happened in the company with employees you've already hired. Well, if you need to talk to employees, let's put on your own personal calendar a time to just have a brief chat and use the hug, kick, hug method with them. We tell you it's so good, especially this hug, kick, hug. One of the key things about it is that with any problem you're talking about, you always frame it in a way that is to the employee's benefit. So instead of just big boss at the top sitting in the office commanding that you fix yourself, it's getting on their level and saying, hey man, you're great. We like having you. Just one or two things that we can really fix. Talk to me about how we can really fix it together. And then you end that conversation with those agreed fixes and when they're supposed to be fixed. And that is a much healthier conversation. And then, yeah, carve out time to make sure your team keeps getting better. Ongoing training, weekly team meetings. For some of you, you've been able to implement these since we talked about them in the group call. So I'm sure you've got some wins to share if you wanted to share. But I know anybody that does this stuff is only thankful for doing it and couldn't believe they weren't doing it beforehand. Yeah, weekly team meetings, one-on-one huddles, crew check-ins as well on the job. And so those are your steps for building an onboarding checklist. We've got about 15 minutes here left. So if anybody has questions of getting somebody onboarded well, or there's any random questions about just problems in the business, that your time is now.
Yeah, this is your opportunity, not just hear from your coach, but hear from other coaches or even other clients who have been in a similar position as you, or might have an insight on what you might be dealing with currently.
Thank you, Daryl and Brent, for reaching out to me about the onboarding checklist. Thank you for listening.
So any questions, just unmute and fire away, type it in the chat if you're unable to use your mic, and we will get them addressed.
Rudy, Harley thanked his guys. You didn't thank us.
It's because you're amazing. We got Darren, we got Kathy, Chris, and Andy. They all asked me for it.
I do.
Overachievers.
I have.
Even-
I was all excited to have starting a meeting, right? A weekly meeting, and my service manager doesn't actually get in till like 9, and the guys are out by 8:30. And I'm in the swimming pool business, and it's next week is Hell Week for Memorial Day, and I'm like, I know in my head I should do this, but I'm really hesitant of stopping for 2 hours or whatever it is, or an hour, and trying to do this right now while it's busy as hell. I'm assuming a lot of people can identify, but how'd you overcome and just do it?
I think Brent could probably testify to this. I think it's something that he's talked about before, how with doing the group call, or doing the weekly meeting with your team, there's no good time. There's no easy way. You just got to buckle down and do it. Brent, can you talk about that a little bit maybe? And what benefits you've gotten from it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. I found that just getting it done right away Monday morning is best for us. And we start at 7:30 in the morning. We usually takes about an hour, and we just go through old business, which was last week. And then we go through new business. and what we learn and what we gain. And it's amazing what we forget in a week, just to pick up loose ends from last week when we're moving quickly through the week. That's our opportunity to talk about it again and to contest. I couldn't imagine ever not having a Monday morning meeting. It's essential. So just do it.
Shocked, Darren, how much more, by sacrificing that hour, how much more productive you are the rest of the week. And even though it seems counterintuitive that like, okay, I'm going to take my guys out of the field, but yet we're going to get more work done. Yeah. You know, if we're all on the same page, if we all have a game plan, if we are addressing issues together, my phone's not going to be blowing up throughout the day. If they know they have a set time to ask me stuff in the morning, it might minimize some of that. I would just say, try it. See what happens. If this week gets too overwhelming, you know, start it next week, but there's never going to be a great time.
Yeah, that's the thing that I would add is there's never going to be a good time. And then you can also break it up. You know, you said 2 hours. That's a long time for a meeting. I don't think anybody has a good 2-hour meeting. Someone's going to get bored. Someone's going to hate their life and want to do lots of different things, but 2 hours is a long time. But I would say, especially for starting out, it's mainly about starting the rhythm, starting the habit and the routine. So even if it's just 15 minutes, you know, you don't go into the depth that you maybe want to yet, but you get the habit started, that'll be effective too.
For sure.
We used to have I used to run a really big framing outfit, like over 300 carpenters here in Michigan. And one of the things they did with the foreman once a month or once every other month, I think it was, you know, they would have everybody just come back to the shop at the end of the day. And it was only for foremen and like lead guys and stuff like that. But, you know, put out, like, you know, do a dinner thing, you know, whatever, chicken wings, all kinds of stuff like that. But go over any like the company issues, like anything that was going on, you know, kind of, you know, celebrate people by, you know, like somebody finished a project or something. You know, we talk about it. This company was unique because the books were open to the foreman because their bonus was based on how their crew performed, and they got 10% of any profit they made the company, you know, doing that. But the bigger issue that it did for the company was, you know, we had a real good mix of older foremen, younger foremen, stuff like this. And so guys could come in and, you know, maybe they were having issues, either manpower issues, or they were having, you know, just an issue with like a certain technical issue, or like, you know, a framing thing or something was really complex. And there was a ability for these older guys to share some of that knowledge with these guys, because they're so spread out all the time and everybody's going in different directions. As
Right.
a whole, they don't get an opportunity to kind of, you know,
It's that
just
central
bond.
time
Yeah.
for everybody to meet, to get together. And this kind of goes back to what we're talking about, company culture. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, we have our weekly meetings for certain things, but then I would put in your schedule once a month, every other month, to do something special with the team. And that can really help with training with other guys, getting wisdom, and then just building that culture.
So
Any other questions
Good
you
question,
have?
Well, I'll throw one out there real quick. You know, Richard Branson's got a lot over everybody, right? Hey, Kitty. Because I mean, you know, none of us are building aircraft that go into outer space, right? So it's a pretty cool place to work. But that being said, you know, and a lot of the guys are maybe a little bit older and stuff like that. The culture of employees has changed drastically in just the past recent years. And so a lot of the newer employees coming in, the demands are much greater. And it's definitely more challenging, and loyalty is kind of a two-way street, right? And when we as business owners, we love having loyal employees, but it goes both ways. And for whatever reason, and this is just my experience just working with different companies and stuff, it's just that it's really hard to establish anymore, especially in the trades. Guys, a lot of times they'll jump, you know, I mean, in the carpentry trade, they'll jump for 50 cents an hour, $1 an hour. I mean, it's that crazy. It's that competitive. The job market is that, and it's usually not that. These guys they're jumping for $5. I've seen, you know, 25%, you know, increases, and wages are just all over the place. So in that regard, you know, what are your guys' thoughts as far as, and I know it's about building culture, but trades are different. Trades are way different than office companies. We operate in a different format. We speak in a bit different vernacular, especially talking amongst one another and things like that. And what are some of your thoughts? Because, I've had guys go, I need the Friday after Thanksgiving off because I have to go shopping with my girlfriend, and things like this that just like make my head explode. And it's like, no, it's like, be a man. No, you work, let's go type
People,
thing.
I think with this culture and just so everybody knows, when you're talking to Redmond Growth, this whole company is built on, with people who are 35 and younger, the majority of us, so
Yep.
and we're people who, a lot of us spent the first 2-3 years of our career at Redmond Growth getting to work by 5:30 a.m. and working till 5 or 6 or later and pulling weekends, and so you're talking to a group who is a little bit, we understand that not everybody our age is like that, but we also know that there are people out there who still have a work ethic.
Sure.
What I will say is that I would not pull hours like that if it wasn't for the fact that I work for a company that cares about my goals and has been proactive in showing me a pathway on how these hours are going to get me to where I am trying to go. And so I think it goes back to, Dale Eads with Arnold's Plumbing, his example, he's a plumber. He's working with contractors, like your typical contracting guys. And he's able to build and keep guys for years who are highly invested in him because of the culture that he has built. And he gives raises and he has a merit-based pay structure. And when he was able to financially do it, he added benefits. He's very intentional about doing those things. Okay, I understand your wife's pregnant and your car broke down. You know what? How about I come out here and pick you up? Or, let me see if one of the guys would be willing or to come out there and grab you this week while you're getting your car fixed. Just being intentional so that they know that you care. No longer do people, well, I can testify to my generation. People used to live to work. Now we just work to live. We work so that we can live our lives outside of work. And so we've got to know that we are in a business that cares about that, the stuff that's going on outside of my work life. And so there's no easy answer. I wish I had a good one for you, Daryl. But incentivize, build a culture.
Yeah, we've done all those things you're talking about. I'm telling you, we offer amazing benefits to our employees, very understanding about like time off. We don't have like a vacation policy. It's like, what, if you need some time, then we'll work through this, as far as that goes. We've really bent over backwards, and for the life of me, I can't figure out, and don't get me wrong, I've had guys work for us for 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years, but it's just the hiring that just, you have to go through. You got to kiss so many more frogs before you kiss 5 frogs, you get one good employee. Now it's 20, 25, 30 frogs you got to kiss, and it's expensive to put people on.
Yeah.
It is.
Also
There's a
disgusting.
cost to doing it.
Yeah, that's why we have the hiring system, because you do have to be able to hire and fire at will. And contracting is a bit of a transient industry, a lot of the contracting community. So it is a bit of a struggle. I would encourage, if your coach hasn't talked to you about group interviews yet for your lower skilled positions, I would look into that. But it is tough holding on to. And there's some people we don't even want to hold on to, those employees who feel like they deserve more than what they're worth.
Sure.
All right, we've got just a few minutes here. We could probably do a real quick question. If anybody has anything, please feel free to type it in the chat or unmute. And so
I'll throw something out there. I know that we kind of talk about values, but something I really want to throw out there is, you either know your values or you don't. And if you don't know your values, don't just pick 3 or 4 random values and make it sound pretty and say, this is what we really care about. Don't even bother talking about values unless you're truly passionate about them. they've got to know that you actually really value these values. They've got to feel it and see you living them out. Otherwise, it's just pretty and useless. You know, one of our values here at Redmond Growth is, and if, as I say the sentence, all the other coaches could probably finish it for me, but it's he who solves it, or he who sees it solves it. In other words, if you see a problem, figure it out, own it, take care of it right then and there. Don't go around to other people complaining about something. Just figure it out. You're there. You found the problem. Let's solve this. And I'm passionate about that myself because I see the effect it has on our team. And Tim, that's what he does all the time. So don't just pick out values that sound pretty. Just think about things that really mean and really are close to your heart that your team is going to feel and understand and protect those values.
Good.
Absolutely. I believe this is Mr. Dale Eads himself, who I've been bragging about this meeting, but he just sent in the chat. He goes, culture is not about benefits solely. It's about having your employees feeling appreciated and knowing you care about them. I think that goes a long ways. It's hard to, it's a less tangible thing that you can just give them, but be intentional about building that culture. If you have questions, please book.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm sure she had something good to say, but that's
Her cat stepped on the keyboard, man.
you know, her cat does so much you don't even see half of it. No, I kind of love cats. If you love cats, then I'm sorry, but oh, Nicole,
No.
you're back. You kind of cut out there for a
I
second.
cut out. I heard people talking about my cat. He is around. He may have chewed the cord. Who knows? He's quite the menace, I'll tell you. But all right, well, Rudy, I will let you close us on out here, sir.
All right, say growth on 3. So that's gonna be 1, 2, 3.
Bro.
You guys have a great week.
Thank you.
The world is gonna roll me.